Entrepreneur life requires risk, persistence, and a slightly unreasonable belief that this thing you're building is going to work.
And let's not forget copious amounts of caffeine.
Yes, that too.
Hey guys, I'm Allison, the Caffeinated Entrepreneur, an AI-powered business strategist and systems builder with an energy level that should probably come with a warning label.
And I'm Bernie, the man behind the mustache. I'm a virtual events producer who makes sure the tech works, the delivery is clean, and nobody panics, including Allison.
Each week, we are picking up the conversation where my weekly newsletter leaves off. No teaching, no pretending we have it all figured out.
Just two entrepreneurs talking honestly about the highs and lows of growing our own businesses.
And why some ideas are worth sipping on a little bit longer. Welcome to the Caffeinated Entrepreneur. Let's go behind the brew. Hey guys, grab your favorite caffeinated beverage and join us for today's episode where we're going behind the brew of issue number 45, why being a little delusional is the CEO mindset you need. Hello, Bernie. How are you doing today?
Well, hello, Allison. I am tired as usual. The kids kept us up all night, but otherwise fantastic.
You know, my kids are on summer break, and what we have discovered is that one of them, the 15-year-old, cannot sleep in. Like her body clock is just set to 6 a.m. Wake up,
Terrible.
like sucks to be her. And then the 12-year-old, it's 10 a.m. and we're like, get out of bed and start your day, dude. Like, what is up?
You know, what's crazy is I have been both of those children at some point in my life. Like I remember very distinctly in elementary school, getting out of school in the summer, still getting up at 6:30, 7 o'clock every day. I didn't want to be. I was like, but here I am. That sucks.
I've always been an early riser in general. Like it's just my nature. I'm an early bird and Joel is the night owl because that's how it has to be, right? You always marry your opposite. But it's just kind of funny how the 15-year-old wakes up and she's like, I want to sleep in so badly. I want to. I just can't. And I'm like, you've got my DNA. I'm so sorry. I did that too. However, I just want to show off my coffee cups today because I am double fisting.
You are. And I want to know, what is the coffee version of Irish handcuffs, right? Because again, if those were drinks, if those were beers, this would be Irish handcuffs. So having 2 cups of coffee, what is that? I'm curious.
And I would say back in the day, this was the mom of 5 handcuffs. Like that's what it was. I wish I had that excuse now, but I totally don't. The reality is it's coffee left over in this cup that got cold, but I wanted a full cup, but I couldn't make a full cup because I was using a single cup maker. So then my daughter poured the cold coffee into this mug. And then while this mug was brewing, she heated up this mug for me and then brought it back. So now I'm finishing this cup before I start this cup. So maybe we call that perimenopausal brain handcuffs. Maybe that's what it is.
Could be.
But I'm just going to keep on sipping and I'll just keep changing my cups.
Well, you'll have to blur out my coffee mug, but
I know. Once again, y'all, Bernie's not allowed to tell you what's on his cup because it is not G-rated.
no. But if you're a fan of The Big Lebowski, you'll know.
Dumb movie, by the way. I was sharing Bernie pre-show. I watched that movie one time only in my entire life. It's when I was dating my husband because I wanted to be like the cool girlfriend, and I feel like I am dumber because of it.
I mean, that's fair. The first time I watched it, I was stoned out of my mind, and I absolutely was dumber as a result of watching it. But I watched it several
That
times.
wasn't the movie's fault, Bernie.
Well, but there are some good nuggets in there. I mean, there's been a whole. I'm an ordained dude, so like, there's a whole like pseudo religion type philosophy that has spun from this dumb movie.
I'm just gonna keep my peace on that one because I can only imagine. I can only imagine. But anyway, speaking of imagining things, today's topic, it's like you just like you're teeing up today's topic, which is all about being delusional in business. And what does being delusional mean? Is it a good thing? And we're going to talk about that today because back when I wrote the newsletter, and I know you remember this story, but for those of you who don't, read over every word that I write and then just, just put it to memory clearly like Bernie does. Um, I had been working on an intro, and it was back when I launched the Seven Figure CEO System. And Bernie probably knows this because he was in the program when it launched. So he heard this a lot. But my intro slash pitch included, I help you think and act like a seven-figure CEO long before you become one. And I was practicing that pitch during a networking event. And one of the women in the room, and it was a legit practice, like we were all going around and practicing. I wasn't really pitching. And she recoiled when I said that last part, think and act like a seven-figure CEO. And so, of course, when I asked for feedback, she's like, oh, well, I mean, you had me until you said that. Like, I don't have any desire to be a seven-figure business owner. Like, I don't want that kind of pressure. And I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't include that. Maybe like I'm ostracizing people. And I went back to my coach, who I talk about every episode, I feel like, and I shared that feedback with her. And her response was, Allison, do you want to work with people that aspire to be a seven-figure CEO someday? And I was like, well, sure. I aspire to be a seven-figure CEO someday. I want to work with people like me. And she goes, then you leave it just there how it is and you let her self-select out. And I was like, oh. And hence where this delusional thing came from. So, Bernie, I throw this to you. Do you think of delusional as aspirational, or do you think of delusional as reckless when it comes to business? Just your gut reaction.
I mean, I think semantics are important here. When I think of the word delusional, I think, going off the rails, delulu, cuckoo. And I think you have to be a little bit just to be in business, right? You got to be a little bit crazy. But there is like, off the rails, ludicrous speed, type delusional and crazy too.
Yeah.
Where is the line? Gosh. I don't know that there is an answer to that, because I think a lot of it depends on you and your business, right? If you are super passionate about something and super believe in something that nobody else does, you're going to be looked at as absolutely crazy and delusional for even thinking that you can do it. But the other side of that thing, I think, is you have to be able to talk about it in a way that you are passionate, that does allow people to self-select out, right? But I don't know. Where is the line to say too much crazy is or crazy is too much crazy? I don't know how to answer.
Yeah. Well, if you think about some of, the greatest inventors, the Wright brothers, and the idea that they could fly a plane, and how incredibly delusional did people think they were
Mhm.
that a man could fly a plane, and then imagine today without it. Um, but I mean, I think of even Steve Jobs. Like, I'm not a fan of Steve Jobs' work ethic, but did that man have a delusional belief in perfection and the ability to simplify things? Like, that's what Apple is based on, right? Is supreme experience that has a cult following, and so those people were absolutely delusional, and yet they've changed our world in a way that now we couldn't
Can't
imagine
even
life without
imagine.
it.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
that that's a really interesting point too, right? Perspective is very interesting in this situation. Like, there are people now looking back on Steve Jobs and the things that he did, and we can say, yeah, like that had a huge impact and a positive impact on the world. And yes, he was crazy for doing it.
Hmm.
But the people who were in that situation with him that were dealing with the delusion,
Oh yeah.
the crazy in the moment, they, probably had a very different perspective of how that all went down and how it all felt and the value of it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But look at what he's accomplished, what he's done. And is there a level of respect there? Yeah.
Mhm.
There certainly is. I don't want to be him,
Right.
but dang.
Hmm.
So that brings us back to where inside of our own businesses does it make sense to have what I would consider an aspirational level of delusion versus a reckless level of delusion? Is delusion, am I saying the right word? I've said it
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
times now.
Yeah.
It's not, and now, when you say a word a lot and then suddenly it doesn't sound like the right word anymore. You're like, "Is that a real word?" So obviously for me, it was that idea of the seven-figure CEO, and I again shared this pre-show that even my husband pushed back on me because he was like, "What do you know about being a seven-figure CEO? You're not making seven figures. How are you gonna teach other people?" And I was like, "But I aspire to make seven figures someday, even if I never do, and therefore I study seven-figure CEOs and how they act and how they think and how they make decisions. And then I do that too." Is there something in your business, at any point where where somebody's been like, "That's delusional. That doesn't make sense for you, Bernie," and you pushed back on them?
I'm sure that there were, but I don't think anybody's ever voiced it to me directly anyway. I can say that I had a couple of moments like that when I started to pivot the business away from more traditional corporate learning and development and leaning into the virtual thing. That to me felt completely crazy after 15 years reasonably of success in the business prior to me in that space. And, I hit a rough patch and had to pivot. And some of that was at your direction as well, and it seemed absolutely freaking crazy at the time, but it's worked.
I'm so glad I could encourage the delusion. I'm just, I'm always here to get other people on the crazy train with me. Why not? So, all right, so let's flip then to the other side, right? Because the other side of aspirational delusionment, just I'm really struggling now with the word, would be recklessness, right? Like it's not aspirational. It's a bad idea. It's a bad choice. No. Um I can think of a few things that I've done that were reckless, both business and personal, but as my mom always said, she's like, "I'm a cat. I always land on my feet. Like, I flip around in the air and I suck them down." And so in the end, reckless choices turned out okay because I made sure that they did, but they were still
So
pretty stupid, pretty reckless. And so just, a personal note, and it was one of those things where I had to course correct. Back in the day when I did direct sales, I spent 3 years building a direct sales business with a company that sold, not organic, chemical free cleaning cloths. I won't say the name of the company, but my whole thing was if I can get my 5-year-old to clean up a mess because she's not using chemicals, you could bet your butt I'm investing in this, right? Your 2-year-old could do it, Bernie. It's really good stuff. Um, but I was reckless in a sense of that I wanted to build an empire. Like I was looking at women who were like the top 10 women in the company in terms of what they were making and the team size they had built. And I was like, I want to be one of them. And it started off that aspirational, but over time it became somewhat of an obsession, and it really took a toll on my marriage and my family because I cared more about making the business successful than I did about making sure that I was present with my family. And I had lots of justifications for it. I needed to escape. I was a mom all the time, whatever, and I needed something that was mine. And, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's super important when you have littles to have your own thing. But for me, it became very much an idol and it became a replacement for joy. I no longer even look to find joy in my family. I only look to find joy in my business. And if my business wasn't successful, I was in the pit of despair and it was terrible. And I can say this that I did come to a head. And I don't want to say that Joel told me I had to quit, but we were at a moment in our marriage where it was like some serious decisions have to be made here. And if I want to save a marriage, the business is going to have to go. And I can tell you that when I walked away from the business, Bernie, it was like my best friend died. Like I remember standing, I was putting laundry from the washing machine into the dryer, and I just burst into tears all of a sudden because I was overwhelmed with um, despair and grief of giving up something that I had spent 3 years not just building, but caring about obsessively. And then it was like gone in less than a month. And it was awful. So yeah, I mean, it was a delusional, aspirational thing that turned into recklessness.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there are rabbit holes, right, to go down, and that type of stuff can happen. Um, I think that there could have been a situation where it wouldn't have been reckless, right?
Mm.
There,
Yep.
I think that there's I did Amway way back when. This is kind of what your story reminded me of, and like it becomes almost cultish, and there is a lot of
Yeah.
encouragement to grow your downline or upstream or whatever the
Yeah.
heck they
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah.
right? Like it is very much drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm quite certain that your behavior was very much encouraged by the people who were running
Oh, yeah.
that show.
Oh, I was a cash cow for my upline.
Sure,
Oh, you can bet
yeah,
it.
I'm sure. And that's an
Yeah.
important factor too. I think when we're talking about whether something is reckless or a productive type of delusion, right? Like who are the people that are involved in the thing? Are they there to
Yeah.
support you? Are they benefiting from your delusion or recklessness, right? Like because if they're benefiting
Mhm.
from it, they just may encourage you to continue being reckless.
That's a really good point because it actually goes back to our episode we did a couple of weeks ago about the core 4 people
Hmm.
in your group, and that idea that if you're not careful about who you let be in your little inner circle, you're right. It could very well be someone who benefit from you being reckless, either because they're making money off your recklessness, right? Or on the contrary, they want to see your downfall because isn't that the truth? I hate that, but it's true that even sometimes our closest peers in business, they don't want to see us be successful. And so they will encourage our recklessness just so they can see us fall. And then, it makes them feel better about wherever they're
Wherever
lacking
they're
or
at. That's
whatever.
right. Yeah. It's it's sad. It really is. And honestly, I'm very glad to have the community that we do where that is not the case, where it's about, raising people up and supporting each other. I don't know that I would do well in any other type of group, to be honest with you. It just that drives me crazy.
There's that pettiness, I think, in any environment. And so you just, with a certain level of maturity, you have to separate yourself from those people. So I don't know if I've ever shared this analogy with you about business owners, but this is just kind of funny. It fits in. So I think of business owners, we go through levels of fish. And this is ironic because I don't fish. I don't even eat fish. But it's just the way I think about it. So, like, we all start off as guppies, right? We're these little tiny fish. We all hang out in one school. We all pivot together. Like, we all follow the trends. But then ideally speaking, the people that make it they turn into salmon, right? They swim upstream. Yeah, they're still swimming with the other salmon, but no one cares what anyone else is doing because we're all headed upstream to the the place where we're gonna wherever we aspire to be. What do you call that? What is
Don't they go
what is
upstream
salmon?
to mate or to die? One of the two. I don't know.
Keep the analogy G-rated, but like the idea like that salmon have a mission, they know what it is, they're willing to go upstream, they're willing to literally cross roads, they're willing to risk being eaten by a bear as they jump up the waterfall because they know where they're headed. And that's what matters, right? So you're salmon, right? And then from salmon, in my opinion, you either become a dolphin or a tuna or a piranha, right? So dolphins continue to be the business owners. They're now successful. They're enjoying their business and people want to be around them. People are like, oh, look, a
Yep, they're
dolphin.
fun.
Yay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to be in
yeah,
your world,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Tunas, because tuna is expensive, like good tuna, not like tuna fish in a can.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
Tuna is expensive. So these are successful entrepreneurs. However, like tuna fish, they stink. Like you open it and you're like, ew, I just don't really want to be around them. Like you can't put your finger on why you don't like them, but you just don't. You're laughing because you know people who are tuna, right? We all do. And then you have the piranhas, right? And they just devour anyone around them so that they are the only ones left. And I think those are the ones coming back to this whole delusional thing. They're the ones that help you be reckless because they want you to see devoured. And then finally, from there, you have whales and you have sharks, right? And they're the giant fish in the pond, ocean, whatever, sea. But again, whales, we want to be around. We think they're majestic. Everything they do, we think is amazing. Sharks, we're afraid of. They're extremely powerful, but like steer clear, like because they will take you out, right? They smell blood in the water and you're out. So isn't that a great analogy though?
It is good. I mean, it gives you a visual, and you have a little story behind each one. Like, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Right. I don't know why the heck I started off with guppies and salmon, and then from there I'm like, ooh, what other fish makes sense? And it just
Kept going.
happened. Um, yeah. So anyway, all that to say, again, I think that like you're saying, it really matters who you're swimming with.
Hmm. Yes,
You
absolutely.
know, whether or not you continue to be aspirational or reckless. I think that if I had been around uh, people who I'm around now, my direct sales business probably wouldn't have gone the way it did, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Who you surround yourself has a really big impact on your trajectory and the things that you do in life, right? What things are important to you. And dang it, Allison, I really want some sushi now.
Ew, and I'm like, "Ugh,
Nice hunk
I
of
don't even,
tuna with some wasabi. Oh, amazing right
like."
now. Gosh.
So, all right, so let's think back how I just wanna now delineate what are red flags that aspirational delusion is becoming reckless delusion,
Mm.
right? Like, because I do think that in the beginning, I had aspirational delusion with the direct sales. And I can tell you that even now with my business now, I have aspirational delusion. But, what's the red flag where it's like, careful, because now we're getting into reckless delusion territory and we want to be careful.
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking about red flags. What are uh, the visible things, behaviors we might be experiencing? Where,
Or even the
right?
thoughts that we're having internally that we're not sharing.
Yeah. I mean, overspending on anything is probably one of those things, right? If you're overspending on ads or tools, beyond what your revenue can actually support, thinking that that one more thing is going to push you over the edge,
Yeah.
that's, a reckless delusion. Um, I mean, I would probably say
Here, before you go on, I'm gonna push back a little bit
yeah.
because I think there's investing in your business and then there's overspending.
Mhm.
And here's where I draw the line for me. If the investment makes it so that I have to worry about, not being able to contribute to my family in a way that I said I would, it becomes reckless. And I've been there. I've done that.
Mhm.
I've been like, that sucks. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I've absolutely recklessly spent
Yes,
rather than wisely invested. Because I do think that sometimes we have to invest
of course.
in a way that feels scary, but not reckless. So anyway, I just wanted to,
100% agree with you on that because there are very worthwhile investments, and if you are committed to doing it, you will get a payout from it. But what would be
yeah,
reckless is signing up for that coaching program that's super intensive and then not doing it, not showing up, right? You're just blowing the money,
yeah,
or you're spending more
yeah,
money on ads but not handling the inflow of leads, right? Like those
yeah,
are the type of behaviors. To your point,
yeah,
sacrificing your family for the sake of the business, for whatever that looks like, be it just time, be it money, that, and I'm guilty of it myself, obviously. That's when it starts to get a little bit reckless.
yeah. And I think even there, and we've talked about this in recent episodes, I know because I just edited them, where we're like, ideally speaking, we never want to sacrifice family time. We never want to. But the fact of the matter is, we're growing businesses, and somebody has to put food on the table and a roof over the head and all the things. But that being said, to me, the recklessness comes in. It's like when you seek that out willingly, like you'd rather be working on the business than be with the family. That's when I think the quote unquote sacrifice is just recklessness because now you're basically choosing to let your family fall apart. And I've been there, so I can say that with confidence. I know that it really happens. Even it doesn't mean that you don't love your family.
Right.
You get caught up in the reckless delusion.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say are some other flags?
Oh gosh. Well, I think in that I'm a classic goal setter and then move the goal before I reach the goal. That I think that there is the aspirational version of I would love to make seven figures someday. Um, but then saying that it's not good enough, whatever I made this month, is it good enough because I didn't make the next thing? And I think that emotionally and mentally for me, It can be reckless. Not that I set goals that make me stretch, but when I pound myself continuously for not achieving goals that I'm not, that I'm still working towards. Does that make sense? Like, it's a bad habit to continually move the goalpost and never let yourself achieve the goal. But it's even worse when you don't achieve the goal and then you're like, well, everything I've done isn't good enough. It doesn't count because I didn't hit the goal. That is a mindset that I think becomes a red flag. That is a reckless behavior over aspirational. I would love to make $20,000 every month. It's aspirational. But if I start getting mad that I'm not hitting it, that's reckless.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there comes a point where self improvement or stretching yourself crosses a line and becomes not only reckless but unhealthy as well, right? Like,
Yep.
there are I mean, I'm going to say it. There are people who take their own life for that very reason,
Yeah.
right? Like they have such a warped expectation of what life should be or shouldn't be, and they try to solve the problem by taking that way out. It's
Yeah.
just a
Which is the
mindset thing.
extreme, but it
It
happens.
happens.
It's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is another reason it's so important to have people around you that are gonna see that and be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's pull
Absolutely.
back." Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think the only other thing I can think of that is a red flag, and again, it's very internal and less external, but it's that idea of when imposter syndrome suddenly becomes something that you can't get out of. When you're putting on an act that you are, if I had sold the seven-figure CEO system and basically pretended I was already a seven-figure CEO, well, of course I'm going to feel imposter syndrome because I'm acting a part that I am not actually. And so I think that that's something that we need to be careful of, is that pretending, because we force ourselves to pretend harder so that we can, quote, avoid the imposter syndrome. And it's a different view of imposter syndrome that I think a lot of people think of usually. We're like, oh, you're not an imposter, you are the expert. True in a lot of cases, but sometimes, no, no, no. You really are the imposter because you are really pretending and you're doing it because you have reckless delusionment. Um, again, is delusionment? I don't even know if that's a word. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, but there is a difference between imposter syndrome and being an imposter. Like you said, some
Mhm.
people are just they're faking it. They are not the expert that they claim to be. But those people aren't worried about how they feel about it's not imposter syndrome. They're just scared of being caught.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
that's
Fair.
different, right? That's very
Yeah.
different. Um, Truly, people who have imposter syndrome are not imposters. Like
Mhm.
it's one of those contradictions, right? Like, if you have imposter syndrome, in all likelihood you are not an imposter because you're worried
That's
about
a good point.
being an imposter or people seeing you as an
Right.
imposter. Like, if you are an imposter, you're not really worried about it. You're worried about getting caught. Different.
Okay. So that makes more sense. So the reckless delusion is becoming an imposter so that you can convince people
Yes.
of the fact that you are something that you're not because you want to be perceived that way. You know,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
it. That's it. All right. All right. Well, I mean, I can't think of anything else, like anything that we haven't
Yeah.
left unturned yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of stones to potentially overturn, but I think anything that becomes unhealthy or obsessive, um, you know, just evaluate, like, am I really doing it for the right reasons? Am I moving in the right direction? Um,
Mhm.
because a lot of the red flags, they look like hustle. They look like, I'm trying really hard. They look like, I'm doing this for the best interests of my family, and like all like, but sometimes it's not, and there is
Mhm.
a whole other reason behind it, and you have to reflect on that and look at it yourself.
Yeah, I think hindsight is 2020, right? It's super easy to look back on something. And I do think that in some ways, and we've talked about this in other ways, but entrepreneur life is not a straight line. Like, we are constantly swaying to the left and to the right of the path that we should be following. And so I think it's just a matter of trying to swerve less, right? Like you're gonna go a little bit delusional on the aspirational side, you're gonna go a little bit delusional on the reckless side all the time.
Yeah.
It's the constant course correction
Yeah.
that we need to keep our mindset on. And I think that the better we get at course correction, the more likely we're going to be successful faster, and we're going to achieve that aspirational delusion.
I agree. I agree. And I think that people who are looking for certainty, you don't want to be an entrepreneur. You need to just go and get a job and be happy with it. Um
Mhm.
because it is a lot of uncertainty. It is a lot of risk taking, and sometimes you do have to be, delusionally optimistic about the outcome that you're going to get to. And sometimes it is borderline unhealthy, but that's also
Mhm.
just part of what it is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes people will think you're reckless when you're like, no, I
Yeah.
really know I'm not being.
Yeah.
And so there's no, as most of our episodes, there's no one right answer to this. It's constantly just you as a business owner evolving and thinking about it and surrounding yourself with the people that you can talk to and figuring it out as you go.
That's it.
I think that's it.
I think
Any
that's it.
closing thoughts before we just land the plane?
No, I think we pretty much just about did there.
I think we landed it. So we're just going to end the episode on that. I love it. So, guys, thanks for listening. Remember, keep showing up, keep taking the next step because the caffeine is strong.
And so are you.